Hello, and welcome to the You Are Covered podcast. I am your host, Aly Miller. I am so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. Whether you're listening to this episode while you're driving, while you're doing the laundry, while you're, I've been doing a lot of nursing lately. So if you're just sitting and nursing a baby, I'm glad that you're here and squeezing in some self-care for yourself by listening to this episode. I am honored to be part of your day. Today we're talking about something that hits close to home for many of us, ADHD. If you don't have it, you might know someone who does have it, or maybe you're clicking. I don't know why you're clicking on this episode, but my assumption is that this has impacted your life in some regard. Either you have somebody in your life who has ADHD, or maybe you're thinking, hey, I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. Where do I start? Is this something that I should look into? And that's really what I want this episode to be for you. I am a mental health therapist. This is not therapy. This is just talking through a few things that might help you get started. And maybe you've been scrolling through social media, and we're all guilty of it, self-diagnosing. Maybe it's time to actually take that seriously and be like, okay, I want some answers. I want to know. I don't want to do the self-diagnosing thing. I just want to know a little bit more. And that's kind of where this podcast episode will probably find you. It's in the in-between, right? Because this does not count for therapy, but it is going to give you some tools or some ideas on where to start if you think you have ADHD. You're wondering if there's a reason why things connect with you or resonate for you when you read about something that is ADHD related. I just want to start off just saying that when somebody discovers that they have ADHD or ADD, they feel more relief than anything, because it's the first time that they're thinking, oh, this makes sense, because their whole life they may have been labeled as lazy. And maybe you're in this category: lazy, disorganized, not focused, not smart. There's a whole list of things that can cause some immense shame. And we're going to just drop that today. We're going to drop that today. We're going to say no more. I'm not going to let it stop me from getting answers, getting the support that I need. And I am for that. I have seen, this is why I'm talking about this topic, and just hear me when I say it. I have seen people's lives totally change once they figure out that they have this diagnosis. And honestly, it's a really easy one to treat, and it's a really easy one to start figuring out. And I think it can be really helpful for the people around you too. And to start figuring out, oh, this is not just frustrating. There's a reason why this is frustrating. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about ADHD, ADD, and I have it. Like the education helps. So I think the first thing to do, and that's what you're doing today by clicking on this episode, is educating yourself about ADD, ADHD. Okay. Read books on it. And I would say, don't just scroll on Instagram for this information. Like, find good, solid books by psychologists, by psychiatrists, by talk therapy, mental health therapists. There's some good resources out there. I personally am obsessed with Dr. Amen. I think that it's fascinating to me that when he talks about ADHD, like, he's actually seen it in the brain, because he does brain scans along with his treatment. And I think that is amazing, because a lot of times when we talk about mental health issues, sometimes we're like putting it out there of, at least for me as the clinician, I'm looking for the symptoms, where he can actually see it physically show up in the body, in the brain, which I am obsessed with. So I have a whole bunch of resources on my blog for those of us who want to learn more about ADHD. So please don't hesitate, right? So there are 3 presentations of ADHD. That's the primarily inactive, and this might be where you're feeling like you struggle with focus, disorganization, completing tasks. You might find feel like you're spacey, and then primarily hyperactive, impulsive. And this involves like the restlessness, the talking excessively, interrupting others, and difficulty sitting still. There can be also a combined presentation is what it's called. It's a mix of both inattentive and hyper impulsive symptoms. And I think it was recently that they kind of combined the two. And so you just say ADHD, where it's like an umbrella for ADD as well. And so that's like more recent of a term. And what many people don't know is that ADHD can look different in women. We're often overlooked because we tend to have the inattentive presentation. So, you can be a daydreamer, the ones that have a million tabs open in their brains, right? The ones who seem like they have it all together on the outside, but they're really drowning in overwhelm on the inside, or I would say like a lot of times they can be misdiagnosed as having anxiety. And I found this really interesting. If you take away the anxiety and it's really ADHD, you've taken away that person's ability to really cope and function, because people who have ADHD and they're undiagnosed and not medicated and don't know how to cope, they're coping by having that anxiety. Like, okay, I need to get to places on time. Okay, I need to make sure that I have this paid off right now, because if I don't do it right now, I'm going to forget. Primarily in women, it can be misdiagnosed as anxiety. And I think you will know when you take if you take any kind of anti-anxiety medication, right? It's like all of a sudden your way of doing life is taken from you, and then you really get worse. And that's usually a good sign that, hey, I need some ADHD medication. I've also seen people be misdiagnosed with depression, because sometimes if it's so hard to focus and get tasks done, so much so that you can't brush your teeth, you can't brush your hair, like all of it is feeling like it takes too long because your brain is on hyperactive mode and it's boring to you, and then it's hard, and then there's like that pain in your brain. Literally, there's like pain receptors going off in your brain. Like, this is painful for me to shower. Then you could get misdiagnosed as depression because you don't want to wake up in the morning, because you see how the spiral can start. And that breaks my heart. I just physically, I get so sad about that, because it's such an easy fix if you're just figuring out, oh, I have ADHD. The answers can be a lot less scary and overwhelming, I think. That's how I would say it from what I've seen, and like just, in sessions. I just think that it can be, I think that's why it hurts, because I'm like, it can be a really simple solution. And we don't want the drowning feeling, right? So I would start by reading some books, right? Listening to some podcasts, follow reputable ADHD educators, and look up kind of some of those symptoms to kind of look at what is actually ADHD. The next thing I would do is I would track your symptoms. So once you learn about ADHD, start tracking what those symptoms are, the ADHD symptoms that you find show up in your life every day. You could keep a journal. You could use your phone app to write down what you have more difficulties with. And that could be like, okay, so focus and concentration would be one, time management, organization, emotional regulation, completing tasks, memory, impulsivity. So I would be really specific. Instead of writing like, I can't focus, write down, I started 3 loads of laundry today and forgot all about them until bedtime. Real examples will help a professional kind of understand what you're experiencing. I would also say like involve somebody else in your life too. Start talking to somebody and say, hey, do you think that I might have this? Chances are they've already thought it if they haven't already communicated it to you. Think back to your childhood, maybe somebody who knew you growing up. That would be a good person to ask as well. But ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means that the symptoms start in childhood. Even if you weren't totally diagnosed with them, ask yourself, did I struggle with these things when I was growing up? Did I struggle with homework? Was I always losing things? Did teachers say I wasn't working up to my potential? These patterns matter, especially for adults, I found, because that's what I work with. I think that when you are in school as a kid, having ADHD is a lot more of a problem, right? So, there's behavior issues. You need to talk to a teacher. They'll get you diagnosed, blah, blah, blah. But if you escape the radar, if you were under the radar on these things, and especially for girls, it's not a problem, and you're just functioning with tons of anxiety, you grow up not actually understanding that these are things that you struggle with, and then you start to learn how to cope on your own in the best ways possible. I mean, maybe you found a creative job that doesn't expect you to get a whole lot of admin done, okay? There's like so many things to where you're like, okay, I don't need medication, or I didn't need it until now. Or so life seasons can change, like a job situation can change, or you moved and all of a sudden you're like, why is it so hard for me to like finish tasks? Or a big one that I've heard is I moved by myself. Like I live alone now and I'm having a hard time getting my household chores done, because that's a big one for people with ADHD. They get done with things a lot better when they're with somebody. So it's called body doubling. So when you live by yourself and you have ADD or ADHD, it's harder to accomplish tasks. And so it's so interesting. So that might be the issue, that it all of a sudden it comes up later in adult life and you're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I've heard some moms that it came up for them in motherhood because there's a ton of small tasks that you have to get done that could feel boring, or they're repetitive, and so they're boring, and then you look and feel like an awful mom because you're like, I feel so lazy, I feel like I can't get anything done, and really you are. It's just that you're not you're not feeling consistent because you're learning how to cope the way that your brain is allowing you to cope. Track your symptoms. The other thing I want to say too, and this is for moving into number 3, is that when you go to a talk therapist, they can't officially diagnose you, but they can actually tell you what your symptoms are, if that makes any sense. So in here, I have my DSM-5, and what I usually do with clients who think that they might have ADHD or ADD is I read out what the symptoms are in the DSM-5, and that is how we start the process. And I usually encourage, hey, like go get a psych eval, or go talk to your primary care doctor and see what they think. Or if they're really not able to function and it's really impeding on their life, let's talk about medication. What does that look like? So the process would be, I would go to a talk therapist first, see what they have to say, because a lot of times you want someone to talk through the process. So like if you went on medication, you want to make sure that there's not something else going on, and they would be able to talk with you and check in with you week to week. Okay. So psychiatrists and psychologists can do the official diagnosing, and some licensed professional counselors who specialize in ADHD can also do that, but not all therapists are trained in an ADHD assessment. So you'd want to find someone who specifically mentions ADHD in their practice. And even in that regard, I would still say if you want an official diagnosis, go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And here's how you could find someone. You would go to like a primary care doctor for a referral. You could check with your insurance company company. Just make sure that things are in network. You could go to psychology directories like Psychology Today. I think ZocDoc also is a good place to look. Ask for recommendations in the ADHD support groups that you could find like on Facebook or something. And then when you call to schedule, you just ask these questions. Do you specialize in adult ADHD? What does your evaluation process look like? Do you have experience diagnosing women who have ADHD? And don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. If a provider dismisses your concerns, I would get a second opinion. Just, it's okay to have a couple of people speak into this topic. A good provider knows that many people with ADHD develop compensation strategies, and that is like no joke, that mask their struggles. And so that's really interesting. I've known too that a lot of therapists will do an evaluation for you. Like they'll like have you check the box on some of these symptoms that I mentioned. And then they'll also send one to a family member. And I think that's really helpful because you don't want self evals. Those are not always the most telling of what people are going through. If it's them telling you, like it's really helpful as a provider to get something from somebody who knows you as well. So I think that's can be really helpful and a good sign that somebody is trying to get the full picture when they're treating you. So your treatment options, if you do get a ADHD diagnosis as an adult, treatment is not one size fits all. And I think that's especially true with medication. Listen, ADHD medication is nothing to be afraid of. It is, I think, in my opinion, some of the easiest ways to be treating a mental health issue. So medication stimulants like Adderall or Ritalin and non-stimulants like Strattera can also be super life-changing. I think also there's Wellbutrin, and they can help regulate neurotransmitters in your brain. I would say cognitive behavioral therapy is really good. It's kind of just looking for those connections in your brain that will give you that dopamine of like, okay, I just finished a task and I'm going to celebrate and I'm going to be intentional about that because my brain doesn't naturally do that. So for ADHD, it helps you develop practical strategies and addresses negative thought patterns, especially working with that shame component, where if you've been constantly told that you're all these negative things and then you get an answer, like those negative thought patterns are still not going to go away. And so a lot of it is just reprogramming your mind to be thinking more positively and to get better habits in. And that's something that, you need to start learning. And I've found that sometimes you need medication first to be able to work on CBT. And I know there's a lot of ADHD coaches out there too that can help you build systems and accountability around day-to-day life. I've heard that can be really helpful. Lifestyle changes. I mean, like checking in about exercise. In my opinion, I think that's the biggest thing for clients. And talk therapy is really good for that. Like checking in about exercise, sleep hygiene, what's going on with nutrition. Like, are you eating? Are you remembering to eat? Routines. It all plays a role in managing ADHD, and that's really important. You might use one of these approaches or a combination. The key is finding what works for you and your brain and your life. Okay. So just remember that taking ADHD medication isn't cheating. It's not a weakness. It's not something that's going to like put a Band-Aid over the issue. In my opinion, in my experience, I really do think that it can be something that just helps you connect the dots in order to be able to keep working through the mindset things that you might be able to work in talk therapy. Work through in talk therapy. And I think that's huge. It's so huge. It's like, it really is. It's like putting on the right pair of glasses too. It's like putting on the right contacts. Like it's a tool for your brain to start seeing things clearly. And sometimes you need that first before you work on what else is happening underneath. It's so interesting. And you can, like I said, keep doing your own research, right? So that was number 5, like know your treatment options. Okay. And I really just want to encourage you that you're not alone. So many people have gone through this. I'm really happy for you for taking that step and wanting to really advocate for yourself and figure out what is happening for you in your life, in your brain, and really trying to be the best version of yourself. I mean, the medication can really enhance your own strengths that come with your unique set of brain power. And so I think it's a really cool thing. And then being able to just rework the wiring in your brain is huge. Give yourself permission to rest if you have ADHD and suspect you do, and your brain is working overtime just to keep up with what seems effortless for others. It's exhausting, and rest isn't lazy. So I think that's a big message that I want you to hear as we kind of close this episode. It's necessary. So this week, schedule at least one activity that genuinely restores you. No productivity required. Okay. And here's a few other practical tips that I want you guys. Here's a few other takeaways from this episode that I want you guys to work on, along with like educating yourself on ADHD. I would spend 30 minutes, okay, reading, watching something on ADHD, and make sure it's from like a reputable source. Start your symptom journal, okay, this week. Write down at least 3 examples of how ADHD symptoms showed up in your life. Research 3 providers in your area who diagnose ADHD. Okay, you don't have to call yet. Just make the list. Just write down 3 names. Okay, small steps. I get it. Okay, those are your small steps. That's all you have to do, and you don't have to do them at all at once. Okay, so do some research just for 30 minutes. Start a symptom journal. And then research 3 providers, write down their names. Don't even have to call them. And that is your action step for this episode. So again, thank you so much for clicking on this episode. I am so grateful that you were able to click here, and wherever you're at in this process, and if you're just clicking on this just to help someone else too in your life who may have ADHD, I think that this is huge. And I've seen relationships like really do a 180. I've seen people's lives just be able to flourish. I've seen people's like faces literally change from just being so down to like just change overnight. Okay. And that's why I'm really passionate about talking about this, because it really is important. And I hope that you get the help that you deserve and that you need. So thank you for clicking on another episode of the Abundantly More podcast.